Hello again, everybody. It is time for the two-man game here on Claves Online. I'm Bob Ramsey. That's my partner, Matt Roccio. And we have some fun stuff to talk about today. Obviously, we're always St. Louis U-centric, but other games in the area are going on even as we speak this evening. Plus, I introduced Matt Roccio to a Travis Ford basketball practice today at Chaffetz Arena in St. Louis. We'll catch up on the NBA and do all those things to get everybody ready as the Billikens beat their the second half of their back-to-back with UMass, and then we'll play at home on Wednesday. And so we've got a number of things to get into. And Matt, let's jump right in and talk about the Billiken game on Sunday, where after a very disheartening, I think Travis Ford would tell you, an embarrassing loss at UMass, the Bills turned it around on Sunday and played pretty darn well.
Yeah, that's the kind of game you expect from St. Louis to have against UMass. Gibson Jimerson, obviously, maybe you didn't expect him to have 30, but you expect him to have a big game. And obviously, when he puts up 7 of 10 from deep, he's going to have a good game no matter what he does around that. But he's getting more dangerous scoring inside. He's getting more dangerous with the ball in his hands once he puts it on the floor. He was incredible. And then when you add in, obviously, Yuri being Yuri, getting a double-double with 12 assists. And then the X factor, Jordan Nesbitt coming in with his first career double-double, 17 and 12. He was a monster. And just some of the plays he's able to make. It's hard for us to temper our expectations because we see those little blips. And we see that all he's got to do is put together really 5 or 6 good stretches. And not even that, 3 or 4 good stretches. And he can completely change a basketball game.
Jordan Nesbitt is marvelously talented, has a huge skill set. And I think the one thing, trying to read between the lines when I talk to coaches and other observations that we make and talk to people who cover the game, is that he's still, I think, trying to put the finishing touches on learning how to play at 100% effort and 100% energy all the time when you're out on the floor. When he's able to, when he learns what that takes and what it means, he'll be unstoppable.
Yeah, and I think the big play that people, kind of stuck in their minds from that game would be the sequence where he had the block and then he comes down and he draws the contact and he has kind of that circus layup that he draws the contact on. And then a little bit later on when he skies in to get an offensive rebound over a UMass player and then gets a nice little reverse layup. And I think it's funny kind of bringing in some of the things we saw today. In about a 5-minute span, we saw him almost an exact same block where he came weak side, and one of those blocks where the ball was here, and he came down to block it because he got up so high. And then a few minutes later in the practice, he skies in for a putback that clearly the guys on the team know what he can do because it was very blasé. It was like, yep, there goes Jay Nez doing what he does. But I almost jumped out of my seat. And so, but that's exactly what he can give you. And the fact that he can do it potentially on a more consistent basis, it's hard not to get excited and wrapped up. When you see him have a game like he had then, it's hard not to expect more going throughout the season. And really, it wasn't just those explosive plays, but also in between those big plays, when he was kind of filling in the stat line nicely, he was doing it, I think, with some of the exact things you've been talking about in past possessions, raising up for that 17-footer when he's got the defense on their heel. I thought he did that another couple of times. I think he hit one of them. That is clearly a part of his game that you saw before he came to SLU that he is now bringing back into his repertoire as he gets more comfortable.
Yeah, and so the Billikens, quite frankly, and it was a good game, but it wasn't like a red letter remark. I thought the Billikens did what they were supposed to do against that team at Chaffetz Arena. The disappointing part is the game before at UMass where you've got to beat them. That's one of those road games that you can go out and get because there aren't very many in league play, in any league, to go out on the road and grab a win like that when it's right there in front of you. So as we take what we've learned there and get into practice today in preparation for George Washington tomorrow. For those who don't know, I'm at practice all the time. Matt Rocchio, who I absolutely give credit to for breaking down plays, looking at film, trying to understand what's happening and why it's happening. You do great at that, Rock. But doesn't it help when you know what the team is trying to do, what the design is, and then it makes what you're seeing on film and the results far more relatable?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because something that was really exciting was after I got back from practice today, I actually went back and watched a couple sequences from the UMass game. And one of the few times we really disagreed on this podcast was when I brought up wondering how much of Travis's coaching allows for three-point shooting. And wow, seeing the way they worked in practice to find shots, and then going back and watching some of that UMass game, it was so obvious to me the spots that they were clearly working to get more looks from three-point. And obviously the UMass game is a great example of that. Probably one of the best examples we've seen over the last 2 months of the season of them getting open three-point looks. So my point being is that our big disagreement there wasn't that they needed to shoot more in the game. We agreed there. It was that, is there a consistent way that this team is being coached to find those looks and take advantage of the shooters they have on this team? What I saw in practice today and what we saw in UMass tells me that there is definitely the foundation to see this team taking upwards of 23s, 25 threes per game, which is obviously a big complexion change from early in the season, but I think it's one we want to see. And so that was one of my biggest takeaways from practice today, and kind of then being able, like you said, go back and again look at some of the games in the way that they open up space, the way they attack cross-court passes way more than you would expect a team that you think is kind of conservative in a way because they're defense first, and Travis was always a very good passer, but you don't think of a cross-court pass. But they attack those weak side shooters with cross-court passes so often. They got a bunch of those looks against UMass, and I think it's going to be a look they try to get a lot going against George Washington.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, and if you don't agree to the premise, say so. But, over the history of the game, media and fans, critical, a given team. Oh, they just run, shoot, and holler. They don't have any plays. They play crazy. Or you'll get the critics who say their offense is too rigid. There's not enough freedom. Players want to play free. I believe, and I really do want to get your take and disagree, but after you saw it practice, I think Travis really tries to reach the balance of, here's our play. It's a deep playbook. And within this play, though, the freedom to improvise based on what the defense gives and takes away.
Yeah, and he that was a big point he made in practice about how you need to kind of take what the defense gives you. Don't be say this is what I'm going to do on this play because this is what the play set is. If guys are cutting and guys are moving and things become open because of what the play kind of the background of the play, if that sets up a pass or that sets up an open shot, you got to be ready to make that pass. You got to be ready to hit that cutter. And I think the fact that it's not just cutting to open up one specific thing, the idea is grained there of if you get open on a cut, be ready for that pass. And then the extension, obviously, of having a guy like Yuri Collins, who then opens up that entire mindset across the entire team, that also helps. But undoubtedly, I think that was something that jumped out to me. And also, what I also thought was impressive, and we'll talk about this too, was when they were talking about their switching on defense. That's one thing I've been keying into, especially against the UMass game, because they seem to be trapping guys and going for those doubles a lot more than I've ever seen them do, and they gave up some big open threes because of it, but it seems like a trade-off they're trying to make. But it looks like the defense had a lot more freedom to call out switches. I thought maybe what I was seeing, bringing up a word you just used, I thought I was seeing a pretty rigid switching system where they were calling for switches across the board, at least 1 through 4. But it seems like while that might be the base set of the defense, it seems like there is a lot of freedom for guys to say, this pick got me, jump out on that one. I'm good on this one. Help me on this one. Watch the back. The amount of talking that they're going through, obviously every defense loves to talk, but I was impressed in that there seemed to be a lot more trust in the individual player within the team defense to make the team defense aspect work than I really expected.
Yeah, I think you're right about the 4-man switching. And then Travis alluded on his coach's show on Monday night that they'll do all 5 switching when Basil Traore is out there. Now, we've seen him get taken advantage of a little bit when they occasionally you'll see a team keep going on and letting the Billikens switch and keep moving the ball until they get the matchup they want with their point guard or shifty guard against the big. But Travis believes Traore's got the feet that he can do it. The best I've ever seen of a big man where you didn't worry about switching was Hassan French.
Yeah.
His feet were so good. You literally, for 4 years, game after game, to the point my broadcast partner Earl and I would actually laugh about a guard thinking, oh, okay, I got the big guy on me now. Watch this. And then Haas just would swat it into the band or the cheerleaders. And it became comical. And in fact, that's where I think Earl finally said, speaking to the player that just got dominated, read a paper.
Yeah.
And meaning, know who that is. He can guard you. So Traore is not close to being there, but because he has good footwork and quick feet, that'd be a goal where you want to try and get to where you're comfortable switching all 5.
Yeah, he just continues to impress it. And Carter Chapley, who covers St. Louis, did an incredible piece breaking down, the kind of the story about him and how, we're talking about a guy who's only really been playing basketball for about 5 years now. What he's doing right now, playing for a D1 basketball team at the level he is incredibly impressive. And, he's a big body. He's a great screener. He rolls well. The hands is something, still something definitely apparent that he needs to work on a little bit. But like you said, he moves his feet so well on defense. I think I'd honestly say he's probably the best lateral mover on defense. And that's saying a lot because I think both Franco and Linson are pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm so impressed by Lasina Traore. And Basil Traore, as they like to call him. I gotta get the nickname right for our guy. So I love what we see for him. Some people thought he might have been overmatched at times. He has looked it, but I think those are growing pains that you take in stride if you're St. Louis. It's been worth it, and that was well before the Linson injury that I thought it would be worth it to get him more minutes. And now with him finally coming back, it only opens things up. And in fact, I thought he looked incredible in the UMass game, especially defensively. I think some people really underrated how important Martin Linson was, before his injury. But then you saw it immediately. Even really, he really wasn't able to get up and leave the floor really well, but he was still able to move laterally, cover the weak side, cover some other people's mistakes. I thought Linson getting in 16 minutes in that game was huge.
Yeah, and he looked very good in practice. He looked better in practice today than he did Sunday in the game. And so you'd like to think that's indicating that it's his left leg, I believe. He really has 3 injuries on the same leg, that it's getting better all the time. The thing you love about Martin Linson, the dominator from Dusseldorf, that doesn't work. I tried. Is that he's so fundamentally sound. He's the big fundamental, right? Everything he does is a clinic. And that's what you love about him, that you can count on him to do things the way they're taught. And you don't always get that with all players.
Das fundamental? Something maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I'll have to ask him what's fundamental in German.
There we go. Oh, that's gonna be a windy road to go down. One thing I really want that came out to me, we talked about this earlier in the season as well. God, he is so vocal on the court. I absolutely love it. And it also just his emotion, we saw it when he was on just the bench. I love a guy who can swing a towel, during a big play. It's an important part of being a team. It's an important part of being a teammate. People, you can't underestimate it. But he is so intense. He misses a layup, and he's clapping his hands, saying, sorry, coach, I'll get the next one, and things like that. He's so locked in, and kind of something I kind of made to you today. He's so locked in. I cannot believe that we know he's moving on after this year. This looks like a guy who just eats, sleeps, and breathes basketball.
Yeah, he has not told me this. My guess is that he's looking at professional play in Germany or Europe. That's just a slightly educated guess. I suggest we take his passport away and keep him. And that's going to be my official suggestion. Oh, gosh, where's your passports? Oh, sorry. Well, go ahead and apply for another one. It could take some time. That's my play.
In the meantime, take Basil, go in the gym, see what happens.
Exactly right. So let's one other thing I want, because we talked about it briefly at practice today. I wanted to get your thoughts on how inclusive vocal participation is among the entire coaching staff and all the players. In asides to an assistant coach talking about a given moment in a play on practice, or players talking to each other. I wanted to get your thoughts on that and what you observed.
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't seen a lot of D1 basketball practices in the last 7 or 8 years. The last ones before today were Mizzou back in the late Mike Anderson, early Frank Hayes days. And so, I don't have a lot of experience, but I was honestly shocked by the amount of kind of back and forth going on at certain points of the practice. But it was I love to see it. It makes a lot of sense. I thought maybe certain guys I met, like I didn't expect Corey Tate to be exactly like he was off the court as he is on the court. But he's just literally the exact same person.
Yes.
And it's a very lighthearted. You're teaching these guys, but it's basketball, and these are 20-year-old men. You don't have to berate them. You don't have to dumb it down too much. You're talking basketball with guys who are passionate and have been doing it their entire lives. If you want to get it through, you're going to get aggravated at certain times. These guys are going to get frustrated at times. But the back and forth, I think, shows a clear line of respect from the coaches to the players, from the players to the coaches. And I think that's why we see and hear so many good things coming out, about Travis Ford. And it's why I'm not shocked that he's been able to build a staff with guys like Ray Giacoletti. Why he has such an impressive resume, working up in Gonzaga for the years he has. I mean, this is a guy who has an incredible resume. So I'm not surprised that these guys, have come from different schools to work for Travis. I'm not surprised these players come play for Travis, because there really does seem to be a level of respect among this team that is very, it's very heartening to see.
Let's move on quickly to talk about George Washington game earlier in the season. They looked really pretty bad. But then when you realize, I think Travis told me the second most, or either first or second most transfers in all of Division I basketball. And so when you think about 8 or 9 or 10 new guys coming in, it is going to take time. They go on the road recently and win at Rhode Island, which is, I know from personal experience, it's a very difficult task. So they are not George Washington is not to be taken lightly, and there can be no more hiccups if you want to win the league. You got to win your home games.
Every game is a championship game. That's right from the word of head coach. Travis Ford said that earlier today when he was talking to everybody. It's a championship game now, because they understand that if you want that at-large bid, you gotta keep that resume up. You got some Q2s coming up, and I think they have 5 Q2s coming up. You got to win the overwhelming majority of those. And hey, the schedule just got trickier.
Yes,
the rescheduled St. Bonaventure game means the schedule just got a little bit trickier. So it's not getting easier, and so you got to win the games that are right in front of you that you should. Here's the thing about George Washington. The one thing that jumps out, statistically, teams don't shoot a lot of threes against them. They don't shoot well, but at the same time, teams also get inside pretty easily against them. So it's kind of a give and take. It's not necessarily they're great at running teams off the three. They're just not necessarily a great defensive team. But I think the big thing to watch for tomorrow, especially for St. Louis, is sometimes they get a little flat-footed. They all in practice today. They got chided a lot for standing up straight. So this is a George Washington team that is always moving. Not a lot of ball screens, but a lot of off-ball stuff. And so is that going to be something that bites St. Louis? Because those open cuts, those back doors, those kind of things, when it's been top ball watching or flat-footed, that's been where they've given up big runs to maybe not so talented offenses. So this is another game where you should win pretty handily, but it is also a game where you can maybe find one or two little things that might bite you. And I'm sure Travis Ford in pregame will do his best Lou Holtz impression, and he'll tell us exactly why George Washington should be feared.
You know, one of the things, because that was addressed about not just standing, but also not coasting and sprinting back most of the way, but not all the way. You know what I haven't seen all year is somebody completely gassed and giving the old shirt tug to the coach. Look, once a guy gets on the floor, he wants minutes, he wants to play. But if you're running 100% both directions, you're going to get gassed. And I'm not saying I want to see guys asking out, because the coaching staff pays very close attention to a guy who's playing tired. My point is that's another thing to watch if you're a fan of the team and watching games. Watch and make sure guys aren't coasting. Sometimes, you know, it's not just standing still, but it's sort of coasting from spot to spot instead of dynamic effort. And with dynamic effort, the sky's the limit for this team. With coasting, well, anything negative could happen too. So we'll keep an eye on that. So that's at Chaffetz Arena on Wednesday. Two other games going on as we speak. Number one team in the country is in the region playing at Mizzou, and at halftime it was very close.
Yeah, and actually they're just coming out of the half, about the 17-and-a-half-minute mark, and Auburn is back up by one. It's 34-33. Katie Johnson's carrying them. Jabari Smith, I haven't been 100% tied into this game. It's just been in the corner of my eye. I'm not sure if he's hurt, if he hasn't played the minutes. He only has 3 points. This is a guy who should be, number one pick in the draft potentially coming up if it's not Banchero. And he's having a tough game against a Tiger team that, again, they've given some good squads like Alabama some run, but, they shouldn't be, they should be pretty heavily favored in Auburn right now. But Javon Pickett's got 11 for Mizzou. Kobe Brown, another bad game against a big team for him. That's not good to see, but you're still within shooting difference of the best team in the nation, so you can't really complain right now if you're talking about the Missouri Tigers.
And then on the other side of the river, Illinois at home beats Michigan State. Almost blew it. They almost blew it. I think 2 of the last 3 possessions are down the stretch anyway, and they could have put it away, missed a couple of layups. And fortunately, Michigan State had a chance to tie with like 1.7 seconds left at the free throw line, down 2, missed the first. And then I think trying to miss the second, should have been trying to miss the second, hit it, ball game. So the Illini played well without Kofi Coburn. And so I don't discredit the effort at all, but we're culpable in Michigan State's, comeback and effort at the end. But style points don't matter. In the any time you get a win, it's a win.
You just beat a conference rival who is currently 10th ranked in the nation without your best player, who is coincidentally maybe a top 5 player in college basketball this season. That's a gargantuan win for this Illinois program after the slow start they got off to. And those were games without Kobe.
Last 2 games,
and so. To have a 14-point halftime lead and let that slip away against the number 10 team in the nation, that's rough. But then you get the guard play from Frazier. Plummer is able to get just over 10 points. They got just enough. You play a classic, 56-55 Big Ten game without your big man. That's a huge win for Illinois. They can win games like that without Kofi. Then there's no doubt in my mind that by end of March, we're talking about a top 4 seed in the tournament.
Yeah. I don't think the Final Four would be out of reach if this team's at 100%, but they look like to me, they certainly, for sure, a Sweet 16 team and probably an Elite 8 team.
And it looks like, did Curbelo not play either? Oh, wow. If Curbelo didn't play either, that is monstrous.
It shows that they're a team, and
and
that's really important.
And talk about the confidence you give yourself saying, listen, we can win, we can beat Michigan State without those two. Imagine what we can do with those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge confidence booster. Good for Illinois. I mean, that's obviously going to be a fun program to watch here. If they can get everybody healthy with Curbelo coming back, obviously still a little bit, something still bothers him. Obviously, he couldn't play tonight. But get Kobe back from a concussion shouldn't be much of an issue there. Illinois is going to be dangerous, and they're going to be fun to watch.
Let's switch to the NBA. I'll be watching late college games tonight, but the NBA. Let's talk about some of the things that have gone on since we were on last week, and teams still trying to figure out, I think, sort of who they are in this stretch for the All-Star break. To kind of what's their identity. A number of teams that are wannabe contenders trying to get their rotations and lineup set, get their personnel all back in there. It's kind of a funky time in the NBA. I think relative to baseball, you'd almost call it the dog days of August. It's survival time to kind of get your reset before you get to your stretch.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. The Bulls just got Zach LaVine back in a win last night over the Thunder. I think that was good. Obviously, getting to see a Bulls team at full strength, especially now with potentially the context of the Nets aren't what we thought they hope they could be for the next month or two with KD out. I think that's going to be an important thing to look at. So yeah, that's one big example. And then there's a whole slate of games going on tonight. You have the Nuggets in action. The big question always for them is, can they tread water enough? And will maybe a late addition of a healthy Jamal Murray be enough, or will they already be gone? So that's something to watch always. And of course, Nikola Jokic. You get a chance to watch him right now taking on the Pistons, so you can jump in there. Charlotte and Toronto. Listen, when I talked about it, I might have been a little bit kind of homerish. But the real thing is that Pascal Siakam is back to being a dominating young player in the NBA. He's an asset. He's somebody who can help you win a lot of basketball games. And that wasn't something you could say about Siakam even 2 months ago. And again, Charlotte's the best offense in the league. LaMelo Ball is an absolute blast. So that's another game that's going on right now that you can turn to after we finish up here. That's going to be a blast. And then late tonight, I'm going to be watching this one because I haven't got to watch nearly enough NBA basketball over the last 3 days as I've wanted to. And so anytime I get in a situation like that and then there's a Golden State Warriors game on, I'm going to watch it. So hopefully Steph Curry and the Warriors can make Jason Kidd and the Dallas Mavericks cry. So hopefully he can absolutely ball out because that is a secondary thing that I always like to see. But getting to watch Luka Doncic, getting to watch Steph Curry, that's always a blast. Again, the Warriors, I think the question still is, what do they look like at full strength? Because without Draymond Green and with Klay Thompson still working his way in, we haven't seen the Golden State Warriors at their full height. Suns are the best team in the league right now, but I think you got to wonder if you're a Suns fan, what are the Warriors going to look like if everything's clicking? But then I think if you're a Warriors fan, at the same time, there's how fandom works, you're also paranoid. Is everything going to click again?
Right.
I think that's a legitimate question as well.
Well, and this is not a shot at the man, but missing a couple of years, Klay Thompson. And again, I'm a huge fan. I want him to be as good as he was, but it would be reasonable, and you should probably say there is a reasonable chance that he won't be quite as good as he was. I think that's got to be on the spectrum of realistic possibilities, right?
Yeah, I think so. Especially, it's one thing for him to come back and, be the shooter that we know he can be. It's another thing when you talk about, can he come back and be the defensive player that he was? And that's the thing I think people forget about when it comes to a Klay Thompson. And really, has always been my pet peeve when people talk about the Warriors is he's not just a shooter, he's not just a scorer. He's one of the best wing defenders in the league. One of the reasons that him and Steph Curry work so well together is that you can hide Steph Curry on the worst of the wings because Klay Thompson can guard 1 through 3, or 1 through 4 really, if it's the best player on the team. And so can he come back as that level of defensive player? That's what I wonder about. This is a guy who scored 50 points, dribbling the ball 9 times, I think it was.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about whether or not he's able to move his feet much on offense when it comes to that kind of thing. Obviously getting around screens and things like that. But I mean, you can do that without being, blitzkrieg fast. But can you move your feet laterally? Can you fight through contact? Those kind of things at the same level that you were able to 2 years ago. One of the reasons Steph Curry's incredible is because his core strength is incredible. I got to imagine not being able to have a healthy knee or ankle has, not only affected obviously his leg muscle, but I got to think his core muscle has to be something that's taken maybe the biggest hit. And so not being able to be a strong defender because your core isn't there in the way it was, I wonder, does that affect Klay Thompson? And clearly it's taken him a minute to get back, but where are we in June? That's always going to be the question.
Yeah, and Bradley, for the other St. Louis connections, Bradley Beal's playing tonight. I don't know if that game's over yet. And was it yesterday or the day before Jason Tatum had dropped a 50 ball?
Yeah, had a 50 ball, and that one, God, I love that. I love that game that he has, but it is hard to watch that Celtics team play sometimes. I've never seen a team in so need of just the most basic point guard play in the world.
Yeah, it hurts their consistency, and I think Jason's game is almost the personification of what's going on with the whole team. 51 night, 16 the next, and I think it might go to overall point guard play to get the consistency they need.
Yeah, and that game just wrapped up. They lost by 1 after a 40-point fourth. Excuse me. What?
I feel like I'm there.
A 40-point fourth quarter by the Clippers actually looks like it bumped them off. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
I had that one and the Nuggets one in my DVR. I was going to go back and watch them. That's a bummer. But Beal had 23, 9, and 6. So I'm actually going to go back and watch what he did that game because that sounds like it was fun.
So that'll wrap things up on the two-man game for this evening. I hope to see Chaffetz have a big crowd. Love to fill it up against George Washington Wednesday with a 7:00 tip. And Rocc and I will be back with you later in the week to catch up on Billiken basketball. We'll review the Illini and the Missouri Tigers as well, and whatever else we can come up with along the way. Rocc, have a great one. You and I, bleary-eyed, watching ball all night, and we'll reconvene later in the week. Thanks, buddy.
That sounds good, Rammer. Sounds good.
That's Matt Rocchio. I'm Bob Ramsey. This has been the two-man game on Claibs Online.
St. Louis Acura was the #1 Acura dealer in Missouri in 2021, and we were the 17th in the nation for Acura sales volume. We sell over 100 pre-owned vehicles monthly, and we service all of the makes and models that we sell. We are waiting for verification of our 30th Acura Precision Team Award, the only dealer in the nation with so many awards for customer satisfaction and dealership performance. We have 300 pre-owned vehicles in stock right now. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.